Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode here at Fisherman's Warehouse. Of course, joined again by Bobby Barrick. Today we've got a little bit of a rip bait special, if I'm not mistaken. We've got some Bill Lewis scope sticks in front of us, and we've got your wealth of knowledge to go along with it. So, whatever you have to say, I'm sure it's going to be good. So, let's get straight into it.
I don't know if it's a wealth of knowledge, but it's what worked for me.
Something.
And
yeah.
I've spent a lot of time on the water. And over 9,000. I did some math on it one time. Anyway, it was 9-something thousand hours days on the water. Lots and lots of hours, lots of R&D. So, we're talking about these things right here. I didn't even know what. I remember back in the day with the Smithwick Rogue, and I remember Dobbins said I always used to whenever I wanted to needle him a little bit, I would always say Jim Better's a way better jerkbait fisherman than you. Dude, he's not a jerkbait. It's a rip bait, dude. They call it jerkbait anyway. But this bait right here, amazing bait. Again, locate and find. And with today's sonar, man, I'm so glad I don't fish tournaments anymore because I don't like doing the sonar thing. I love fishing offshore, which is kind of, I maybe not thinking this through properly. But I always used a jerkbait. My favorite jerkbaits when I was doing the Delta thing, when I was doing the clearbait thing, it was a Lucky Craft 127, a Stacey 90. And those are my two, that's cool. It started with the Rogue. And the Rogue, shallow water, down to 4 feet, 2 feet, marinas, harbors in the Delta, Clear Lake around Boat Works and the south end down there, some key docks. And then, of course, the Rapala and the SR7 and then weighting the hooks and did all that. I remember some of the tricks that Dobbins used to do to his little rip baits, and I'd look at that thing and I go, oh, my goodness. Well, the manufacturing nowadays, they got it all to where you don't have to tinker and mess around with all that kind of stuff. And, again, this is, the Bill Lewis scope stick. This is a bait that I've had a tremendous amount of success with in Texas. And this is the jerk bait, rip bait, whatever part of the country you're from, whatever you want to refer to it as. Great locator, great way to catch fish that need to be triggered, fish that need to be talked into eating. When I guided, probably the last 5 years of my guiding out on the Delta and at Clear Lake, if I couldn't get them to eat I keep it simple, stupid, that kind of stuff. So I love the fish trap with a 5-inch fish trap. We talked about that earlier with 3/8 head, single hook. If somebody gets stuck, it's only one hook I got to take out of somebody instead of treble hook. But you always want to start with one hook. But if they're not doing that, if they don't want a bait that's moving continuously, i.e. chatterbait, spinnerbait, swim bait, all that kind of stuff, like most of the time, bass, they will eat it if you stay with it start to finish. They will eat it, for the most part, twice during the course of a 10-hour period. Notice I say 10-hour. Twice in a tournament. It's usually a 1-hour thing because you're going to miss that part of that hour Anyway, you've got 2 key hours there of high activity levels, depending on where you're at in the moon. The rest of the time, those fish need to be talked into. You're going to spend a lot of time working on your casting. Just how it works. During those times, especially when you're a fishing guide, you need some help. You need to get those bites in between those high activity levels. One of the greatest ways to do that is with a rip bait, with a jerk bait.
Most definitely.
And you can, those fish, especially during those cool, and it's always excels during those clearer water times of the year, right? Like we are now, right up through March. I like, this size right here, the 120. I love that size right there. That's about the size of the old Lucky Craft 127 that I loved. This size is absolutely perfect. And the way that they've got the sides honed on this thing, it shows up real good on the Garmin Live Scope. I've got the Live Scope. It just shows up. I can see the bait out there. I can see it coming back. I can see a fish tracking it. It's like, it's video game fishing. It's amazing. It's really cool. It's awesome. But again, I know there's some kids out there that are way better at it than me. So that's why I'm glad I don't play this game anymore. But for me, on the Delta, I knew when I was throwing my rip baits, I like throwing my rip baits in and around the perimeters of the bays. The San Joaquin off of Venice, San Joaquin off of I called it Little Sherman over there. out in front of Venice, out in front of Big Break, in the big water, where shallow meets deep. Shallow meets deep. And that's where the track, the perimeter around the track. The track is the shallow part. The deep, you got Washington Cut, you got the south side, you got Old River, you got Middle River. And so I would like to throw from deep, boats sitting in 9, 10, 11. I'm throwing up to 3, 4. I'm fishing the ridges. I just got to figure out where the key parts of this is. Usually it's wind direction, water clarity, vegetation, food source, whatever. A lot of other little variables come into play. But this size right here was absolutely perfect. The whole time I was doing that, I know that there's more fish behind me than there is in front of me where I'm looking. I'm looking for high activity areas, and I'm trying to eliminate them with this bait right here, okay? But I didn't have my Panoptix live scope, and I didn't have those forward-facing sonar stuff like you do now. I would spend, oh my gosh, I would spend so much time in Latham Slough, in White Slough, in Disappointment Slough, in 14 Mile Slough, going right down the middle, right down the center of those, looking for those marauders, those solos, those groups of 1, 2, 3 bass, because those are going to be the ones that you can put a saddle on and ride. And you can talk those fish into eating this. I don't know how many, I can think of 3 bass over 10 pounds that I caught on rip bait. One of them was in a tournament. Chris Ball I caught one weekend over 10 on a rip bait. It was the Lucky Craft 127. The following weekend, which was strange, on a completely opposite tide, but Chris caught his. He caught an 11 something on a rip bait. Both of them south end of the track on the low switch. You got 45 minutes to really learn something. Learned a whole lot. Made sure that I was in a key area, throwing the right bait at the right time, in the right zone, when the water was doing the right thing. And they're not supposed to be a 10, 11 pounders. I'll take them if they want to wrap their lips on it. But we're looking for those high quality bass in those types of situations. And if an 11 pounder wants to wrap her lips around it, I'm cool with that too. So if the water's a lot clearer, then I'll downsize it a little bit. Okay, I'll go with the little smaller guy. If the water's got a little more stain, if I got a little more wind, I'm throwing that the 120. I'm throwing the 100 if the water's a lot cleaner, shallower, cleaner, that type of thing. Now, I saw this over there, and it brought back Table Rock Shad. Scott Green turned me on to Table Rock Shad. Scott Green, one of the legendary Clear Lake guys, he gave me a BDS-3 years ago and said, go throw this around Rattlesnake Island, shallowest rocks that you can find. And it was late November. And I had an amazing day with this color, this puke chartreuse with a purple back. And so, but the moral of that story was low light level day, stained water that you could see down with the naked eye about that far, low light, kind of high haze, minimal wind. But because I didn't have the wind, but I had that watercolor that helped those fish stay shallow. If that water would have been that, I would have never had the success that I did, unless I had had a 10, 15 mile an hour wind. So, but this color right here, very, very special color. It's a situational color, I call this.
Yeah.
So low light double days, especially like if you have those days, foggy mornings, one of the greatest colors, and I can't believe that everybody doesn't have this color, the Smithwick Rattling Rogue, like I was talking about, back in the day, I won a couple of these. We used to have the January 1st tournament out of Stockton. And a lot of times I think I won that tournament a couple times. And I won it, I think I won it twice. Fished it maybe 5, 6, 7 times. I think I won it twice, a couple top threes. Anyway, always caught them with a gold, with a black, a gold, black, and orange belly Rattling Rogue. And all I did was fish marinas. I fished marinas from Lads all the way to the Antioch Bridge and then back to Lads. And usually had enough to win with. If we didn't win, we had the fish on to win with, because that rip bait, when that water is that cold, is just so key. If you know where those fish, if you're at Clear Lake, and especially, again, we go back to the sonar that you have today, you know that they're using that dock. They're not using that one. They're not using that one. They're not using that one. It usually has to do with how deep it is on the back side of that dock, how deep it is on the front side of the dock, and the bottom contour. Sand, muck bottom. Sand, love that dock. Muck bottom, not too crazy about it. It's all that kind of stuff. Wind blows into this one. Wind doesn't blow into this one. This one's got vegetation on the bottom. It's this tall. In the summertime, it's this tall. But right now, it's this tall. That one, has got a muck bottom and there's no vegetation that goes, or there's just scummy stuff that grows off it, so they don't even hardly use that one right there. But this one, so with forward-facing sonar, you know, yes, no, 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 no. Whoa, look at all the spots underneath. Pew, fire that. And the pause is the whole key. With jerkbait, ripbait fishing, the stall, the pause, it's the juice. If it's flat, I caught so many, and I also used to use the bevy shad, the Lucky Craft bevy shad, and I would use the gold. It was just a gold one, had a little bitty bill on it like this, and at White Slough, I would always throw it with 10-pound test. Because I was fishing a lot of times. I'm fishing out here. My boat's an 11 for the most part. My boat's an 11, sometimes 14, and I'm throwing into 5. I'm keying on that 5 to 8, 5 to 9. Now this bait right here, the 120, I can get this 120 down to about, really, with 12 pounds. I like this with 12. I like 12. I don't like fluorocarbon because I want this to suspend. My fluorocarbon's going to drag this down. If I throw this out, if I make a long throw, I make a 27-yard throw, bop, 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 bop. I get it down to maybe 7 with 12-pound monofilament. I love big game. Just love it. 12-pound. I get this thing into 6.5 feet of water. I can lay my rod down, go back, get a drink of water, come back here, pick my rod up. My bait is still in 6.5 feet of water. With monofilament. With fluorocarbon, I throw it over there. I bop, 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 let it sit. I go over here to get a drink of water. I come back, and doggone it. It sank it to the bottom. Fluorocarbon drug it right to the bottom. Now I'm going to lose my doggone rip bait. And it's got those cool mustad hooks on it too, which I absolutely love. For smallmouth, I love that. Round bend, I like the round bend stuff for largemouth and all that. But for smallmouth and in spots, that mustad. Of course, I like these for largemouth too. But that hook right there, especially them acrobatic, those smallmouth, those you can't beat that hook right. It's just fantastic for that. But that's a little bit about the old Bill Lewis scope stick for those of you that might be interested. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening in.
You're welcome.
Say bye. Say bye.
Bye, everybody.